Hey everybody, welcome back to MTG Spec. This is Tom. Today we're just going to talk a little bit about reserve list. I haven't posted a ton of stuff on the channel lately about Magic because I've been doing this sugar wars thing where I'm trying to quit all added sugar out of my diet. But I wanted to go back to the roots a little bit and talk a little bit about something that I've sort of become more interested in. Certainly in the last year or two, I've taken on a newfound appreciation of reserve list cards and sealed product as being sort of my future in Magic. I'm not a player that much anymore. I mean, I have a deck of every type, from colorless to 5-color, but it's just not something that I do a lot. I recently played a little on Thanksgiving, but in terms of investing, first of all, I'm more on a budget than I used to be, but in the last year or two, I started to kind of collect and organize my reserve list cards. And so this stack here, all in the lovely Holiday Humbug sleeves. This is the sort of the extras, I guess. I have reserve list cards in decks, not so much decks, but some in decks, but most in my notebooks. But these are just some of the ones that I've acquired. I set a goal for myself about a year ago after I started to track. This one's been featured on MTG Mox Man a lot. If you have not been watching MTG Mox Man's channel, he does really interesting reserve list stuff in terms of they do kind of like focused buyouts, like on the Thrall Champion guy. He gives all Thralls +1/+1. He went after Soldevi excavations a while ago, and he does these sort of like stock ticker updates on where the prices are. And it's a conversation that, as far as I can tell, he kind of picked up where Rudy left off, because like Creepy Rudy Alpha Investments, he feels like a broken record every time he talks about reserve lists. He thinks there's nothing really new to talk about. But there's certainly things to talk about because it's not going anywhere. But I set a goal for myself once I realized I had almost half of the reserve list. I was shy of about 80 cards. I set a goal to complete half, and I don't have any of the Power 9 anymore. I used to have some of them, but I just wanted to have half, and I didn't care which half. I didn't care if it was the high end stuff or the low end stuff. I just figured half is a good goal. Because who knows, some of the cards I'm flashing by here kind of in a rush, like these could be the hot cards of tomorrow. We don't know. That's the beauty of the reserve list. You do not know what's going to blow up. You don't know what's going to be ice cold. But one thing I do know, and that intrigues me about it, is that if you look at, every strata of Magic investing, if you look at the really high end stuff, probably the highest end thing you could do would be, to buy a sealed box of Alpha or a Black Lotus, a mint gem 10 Alpha Black Lotus. And either one of those things is going to run you, close to $1 million someday. We're not quite there yet. But if you look at the exact median, the exact middle, maybe, I don't know, modern boxes, sealed boxes or something like that, like Kaladesh or something like that. The reserve list exists there too, because there are median cards in the reserve list that are going to be about the same value as that. This is a interesting one. Catabatic Winds. I like that one. And if you look at the very low end of Magic investing, just basic singles, the reserve list is almost there too. Like there are basic lands that are worth more than some reserve list cards, and we've seen some of them here. But what I did was I got organized. Switch over to handheld view. I have a Google Doc where I just set up a reserve list thing. I kind of took a abstract that was online and pared it down a little bit so it had sort of more, relevant information. I took the racist ban cards, and I noted that of these, most of these are already reserve list anyway. So Cleanse, Jihad, Imprison, those were all reserve list. Crusade, Pradish Gypsies, Stone Throwing Devils were not. Oh, and Invoke Prejudice, of course. So I have the 3 cards on this new list that were not reserve lists. But I just thought it was interesting. But there's 572 total reserve list cards. And the nice thing about this, I don't know where I got this thing from, but if you click on the item, it usually brings up like a little picture of the item. Yeah, there we go. And it does that from Google Docs, I guess. It's kind of cool. Oh, scryfall.com. So if you copy paste this from scryfall.com, you can have a Google Doc where you can just click on the thing. And of course, I have little check marks. And so limited edition, I have 12 cards from that on the reserve list. I just do little check marks on everything. Arabian Nights 1. And then Antiquities 1. But then Legends, I have 24 of the reserve list cards. And the funny thing is, the reason I only have 1 each of Antiquities and Arabian Nights is I had full sets of both of those at one point that I sold. But because I sold them and I never finished my set of Legends, I never sold a full set of Legends. So that's the one I still have the most exposure to, which is lucky in a way because that was one of my favorite sets anyway. I think if I had to name my very favorite set, it would probably be Arabian Nights just for the nostalgia, but Legends was amazing. And the Dark 10 and on and on. And so it just goes down the line. And Fallen Empires, while I was targeting the list, I got all 27. So I have all 27 reserve list cards from Fallen Empires. And so it's just an interesting thing to keep track of if you have the cards. You can kind of make a goal. I wrote down for myself 286 would be half. I currently have 294. So I've actually gone a little bit over the halfway point. But it is just, I don't know. I'm thinking that one day we're going to get to a point where the worst reserve list cards that you can think of, let's cut to the deck and just find one that's mediocre. Carrion, perfect. This one I actually had a couple of just because it was one of my favorite comic book artists, Jeff Darrow, who did Hard Boiled and Big Guy, the Rusty the Boy Robot with Frank Miller. Anyway, something like Carrion, like this one's maybe worth about $5, but there's a lot that are just $1 or less. But we're seeing fewer and fewer of them. And as these coordinated buyouts start to occur more and more over the years, we're going to see the reserve list not occupy every single strata of Magic investing from the worst to the highest. Eventually, we're going to see the reserve list, I think, consolidate somewhere in the, we'll call it the upper middle class, where it's going to be above most modern or current sealed boxes in terms of like single cards. I really think that, because as they've been doing these buyouts and doing videos where they keep track of how many people have what, it's not in the thousands, it's in the hundreds. Now that may just be a lack of participation at this point, but the diamond hands is a real phenomenon, and people who have reserve list cards like myself, we don't do it to sell. We don't do it to flip. We're just accumulating them to do it. So, what does that mean for the future? Well, it means that even the worst of the worst, I'm going to coin a term today that I'm going to talk about down the road. Let's call it the Dour Nine. I'm going to do a little research for you guys, and I'm going to figure out what the 9 shittiest reserve list cards are that exist. Least dollar value, meaning obviously Sorrow's Path is the worst card ever printed, but it's so bad. And Wormwood Tree Folk is another one that's so bad that they're kitschy and fun. I'm talking about just the most blah, awful, low-selling, cheap cards ever that still have something in common with the Power 9. A Mox Sapphire, as good as it is, it's still in the same category in a sense as like a Goblin Wizard or a River Merfolk. And one day that category is going to take more and more added meaning, particularly as the game grows through the latest push into other media. So that's my rant for now. I will talk to you guys later. I hope you're having a great week, and I will be in touch soon.